Hello, dear listener. My name is Rose, and I am the writer, director, etc. of this podcast audio drama thing. I would like to welcome you to our 5th season of the Wessex dramas. Oh my, 5th. With an adaptation of Thomas Hardy's novel, The Trumpet Major. As with our last few, this is of course a romance story with a little bit of light-heartedness in it. We don't really go for the tragedies at the moment. So we now in the story watch Anne, who has to choose from his 3 suitors of varying levels of suitableness, all while King George and his entire court comes down to their small town of Weymouth to survey the possible invasion of Napoleon. I also feel I should mention this is the only one of Thomas Hardy's novels that is, I believe, set in the Regency era. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. So anyway, pop on your mob cap, loosen your stays, and vaguely curse at the French, and let's sit down and watch the unfortunate attempts of young romance.
Chapter 94, External, Pasture, Outside Church, Day. Anne and Bob come out of a belt of trees and see some new recruits having just been drilled on the green outside of the church. The new recruits are making a rough sort of queue past the sergeant, who is handing out a coin to each. The sergeant suddenly looks up at the church clock and stiffens in alarm. He looks at his pocket watch, closes his money bag, and waves his arms at the men, gesturing them away, back to the middle of the green. Around 20 men form a single line, back on the green, and the sergeant stands before them again.
All on you as got forelocks, all at the lower end.
The gunless men walk down to the end, and the other men, craning forward, end up forming a bow shape.
Look, we're all crooking in. Rest.
The men straighten up the line, then, a minute later, are back to the bow shape again, and the sergeant looks at them despairingly and rolls his eyes. A recruit for the lower end speaks up.
What must we do as ain't got forelegs, Sergeant?
You as has nothing, and you all as cabbage stumps and hurdle sticks must make as if they are guns. In your imagination. Now, at the words, hand your cartridge, seize it and bring it to your mouth. Then bite the top off.
During these latter instructions, the sergeant mimes the actions. Anthony Cripplestraw's hand shoots up. The sergeant glares at him.
What?
What must we do? Has that got any teeth, Sergeant?
Get your neighbour to chew it.
Private Tremlett's hand shoots up, and the sergeant then glowers at this as well.
Yes!
What do we do if Boney comes before we got our own forelegs, Sergeant?
There's a store of points in the corner of the clock tower. Use them. Now, shooter!
The church bells start to peal loudly, and the men all throw down their arms, sigh, and move quickly away. The sergeant looks hangdog and sighs at them, starting to move away.
Next Tuesday at 4 then.
He collapses onto a log, gets out his handkerchief, and mops his brow, whilst the men tear off into the inn, making beer-swilling gestures at each other in agreement. Bob and Anne smile and go into the church, just as the miller and his new wife come up to join them. Chapter 95, Internal, Overcome Church, Day. Various members of the congregation are slowly coming in and seating themselves. Bob is seated next to Anne, and the miller and his wife are seated beyond Bob. Some of the trainee soldiers come in and leave their pike staffs leaning against the wall. Bob leans in and confides to Anne.
We sometimes have a fear that poor John will be killed because the trumpeters tend to get picked off first.
Anne shrugs.
He'll take his chance like the others.
Not really like John since that affair with Miss Johnston, have you, Anne?
Anne shrugs again.
He was a real help, you know. He got her away.
Anne looks in surprise at Bob. Then they have to get up as a member of the congregation wants to push past them to her seat. They sit down and...
You don't seem upset by this.
Well, it's ticklish. I'll have to explain sometime.
The vicar comes in and they all stand up. Anne looks questioningly again at Bob. The musicians start the opening bars of their hymn and the congregation start to sing. Chapter 96, Internal, the Mill House, Miller's Workroom, Day. The miller is taking off his jacket and loosening the tight buttons on his waistcoat after returning from church. He sighs with relief. Mrs. Loveday and Anne are removing their hats and shawls in the hallway through the open doorway. Mrs. Loveday calls through to the miller.
Lunch will only be a few minutes, dear. Jenny has done us a cold collation and I've just to tattle it up,
Righty-ho, love.
The miller sits down at his desk and rootles despondently through the untidy pile of papers on it. Bob comes through into the workroom and closes the door behind him.
Dad, will you please get my stepmother to tell Anne the true reason for John's objection to Miss Johnson as a sister-in-law?
Why, lad?
Because Anne thinks that they were old lovers and that John was jealous and wanted to marry Matilda himself.
Good heavens. Then that's the meaning of the split between Miss Nancy and John.
Well, we must do it, as it's only fair to poor John.
The miller stands up. He gestures his horrible business papers away and chivvies Bob out before him.
I'll have a word with your stepmom tonight, Bob. Meanwhile, I've an appointment with a pork pie.
And they got a cherry pie too, sir.
They dive out the door. Chapter 97, Internal, Millhouse, Anne's bedroom, night. Anne is silently reading what she has just written.
I find all justice, all rectitude on your side, John, and all inconsiderateness and stupidity on mine. If I have lost your friendship, I only have myself to thank for it. I do, however, still sincerely hope that you can forgive me, and that you will look kindly on me when we meet again.
She sighs and then continues with her signing. Chapter 98, External, Millhouse, Garden, Day. Anne is picking some flowers from the house when a gig pulls up and Cripplestraw gets down and comes into the garden. Anne stands up and looks at him.
What? Are you back again, Mr. Cripplestraw?
Cripplestraw removes his hat and turns it around agitatedly in his hands.
Oi, and with my other 2 visits, this will be the 3rd time, I say.
He gets out a linen-wrapped package from the basket he is carrying and displays some oranges, nuts and small cakes. Cripplestraw thrusts them at Anne.
The squire sent these for thyself, Miss Anne. These do he come, missy. The squire dairyman ain't too good, and is alone to see your sweet face, he says.
Is Master Festus there?
No, he be away, miss.
Anne sighs reluctantly.
All right. I'll come. I'll just fetch my shawl.
Thank ye, miss. Thank ye.
Cripplestraw hurries out to the gig and horse, and Anne hurries inside. Chapter 99, Internal, Oxwell Hall, Cellars, Day. Anne is descending the stairs gingerly behind Mr. Derryman. There is a spectral light coming in from the small, high-barred windows. Anne sees a pile of straw across the room in the corner and an upended flagstone next to a hole in the middle of the floor. Derryman keeps up a stream of complaint.
Well, despite having to send for you 3 times and having to rootle out them sweetmeats which I put aside for need, you are a good girl, really, Miss Nancy. Eh? Now, you witness this, Miss Anne.
He hurries across to the pile of straw in the corner, while Anne stands uncertainly near to the foot of the stairs. Derryman pulls out a largest box from under the straw. He strokes it lovingly, coos to it, moos at it, pats it, and then puts it in the hole. Anne steps back a little unnerved. Derryman finishes replacing the flagstone and kicks straw over it. He looks up at her, gets out a small rolled parchment and hands it over to her. Anne reluctantly takes it and looks interrogatively up at him.
Boney will be here any day now, my dear, and if anything should happen to me, I want that you should show this to an attorney.
An attorney? Why? What?
It's a plan of where I've buried these papers, and then my blasted nephew can't find them and ruin me and those for whom I have intended them. You'll find that I haven't forgotten you, my girl. Oh no, I haven't.
He heads back up to the cellar steps, followed by an anxious Anne, who tucks the paper roll into her bodice. Chapter 100. External, Oxwell Village, road near to the hall, day. Festus is striding along towards the hall when he sees a slim, young woman in a green spencer with Mameluke sleeves. It is Matilda. Festus accosts her with his usual martial swagger. He walks slowly alongside her.
Good afternoon to you, ma'am. Out for a walk, I see.
Certainly, sir.
You're perhaps a courtier spying the land to arrange some court accommodation, probably.
I am connected with court, sir, but in the capacity of its entertainment.
Ah, theatricals.
Shortly to be, sir. I am usually the leading lady.
Well, Festus Derriman, we shall be the first line of defence for helpless women such as you when Bonnie comes a-calling.
He sees a motion at the corner of his eye. It is Anne leaving the hall. Festus sets off after her.
Must be off. Good day to you, dear creature.
Matilda smiles, ironically.
You droll monster.
Chapter 101. External, Oxwell Village, nearby meadows, day. Anne has heard Festus's arrival with alarm and hurries on in front of him, through into a meadow with a hedgerow and a stile ahead. Festus gains on her and calls out to her. Anne looks worriedly around, but forges on, picking up her skirt to facilitate her walking. Anne gets over the stile and hurries away. Festus climbs the stile and then, red in the face, falls over onto the floor as he slips and falls senselessly to the floor. Anne looks back and sees him lying, unconscious on the floor. She is worried that he's collapsed because of chasing her. Anne draws near to Festus' prone body. She slowly leans over him, anxiously. Festus suddenly grins, leaps to his feet and grabs her, who's only feigning a collapse. He tries to kiss her and rudely manhandles her as she wildly struggles. The small roll of parchment which Derriman has given her falls from her bodice to the ground. Anne, desperate, finally manages to kick his knee. He is thus surprised and leaves off his hold for a second. She runs away whilst he is rubbing the knee and shouting imprecations. She sets off across this new meadow and looks around, but Festus is still following her, roaring angrily at her and hobbling along with his sore knee. Anne gets to the plank over the stream and runs over it. She then attempts to pull it up behind her, but only manages to move it 6 inches or so. In desperation, she runs on. Festus comes to the now unsafe plank and, as he steps onto it, he slides away and tips him into the rather deep stream, which comes up to his waist. Festus emerges from under the water, gasping and furious. He roars at Anne, retreating back. He shakes his fist at her and curses her. Festus then drags himself out and, crestfallen, walks wetly and hand-doggedly back to Oxwell Hall, squelching as he goes. Chapter 102. External, Overcombe Meadows, day. Matilda descends from the stile at which Festus attacked Anne. Matilda sees a small roll of parchment on the ground. She picks it up and reads it in puzzlement. She then shrugs and tucks the paper into her bodice. Matilda then walks jauntily on. Chapter 103. External, Overcombe Lane, approaching the mill, day. Anne bolts through the gate onto the lane and sees Bob ahead of her with great relief. Bob hears her and turns around. Anne charges into his arms and buries her head in his chest, gulping and out of breath. Bob strokes her hair.
You seem frightened, dearest.
Yes, there was this funny man who followed me a while, but I'm really worried about your going away. again, to fight the French, and you'll be killed and all of us will be hunted down.
Bob pats her and she gently pulls away and resumes walking with him alongside into the direction of the mill.
You needn't worry, Anne, really. There's many thousands of us are mustering to defend old England. Now, look what I just brought in Budmouth.
He pulls out a piece of paper with a very good caricature of Napoleon as a large frog.
This will remind us just what a stupid little frog Boney really only is,
Anne nods and gives him a small smile. Chapter 104. Internal, Millhouse, Anne's bedroom, night. Anne is getting ready for bed. She feels around for the parchment in her bodice, but she can't find it. She removes her bodice, but it is not there. Anne is grieved that she has lost Derriman's instructions, so she sighs and then takes up a pen and paper. She sits down at her desk and tries to remember the instructions. Anne then writes them out again from her memory, and then nods to herself that she's correctly remembered. She then looks out into the night musingly. She remembers Bob holding her tightly after Festus's pursuit. Anne then smiles, embarrassedly, and then blows out the candle. There is suddenly the boom of a big gun in the distance and the cry of her mother. There is the sound of stumbling around in the half-moonlit rooms. The miller opens his door and calls.
Bob, did you hear the gun? Come up to the beacon with me.
There is a scuffling noise and Bob shouts back. More scuffling and then heavy boots hurry down the stairs. Anne takes a swift intake of breath.
Mama!
She grabs her shawl and hurries through to her mother.
Was an episode of The Trumpet Major, written by Thomas Hardy and adapted by me and my co-writer Anne-Marie Goldthorp. I would like to thank our new editor for this episode, Franziska Schriek. I would also like to thank our amazing cast: Mike Joy, Oliver Hickey, Stephen Marshall, Izzy Joy, Mike Staddon, Caro Joy, Dan Almond, Neil Highley, John Simpson, John Steele, Peter Allison, and Alban O'Brien. You can find us on YouTube under Rose Goldthorp Films. We are on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. We might be in a few other places, but currently that is debatable. We are also on the Thomas Hardy Society website and also on our own website, The Daily Dilettante. If you want more updates on what's going on with the podcast and with its subsequent films, you can sign up to our newsletter from the Rose Goldthorp website and I believe the Daily Dilettante website, or you can just check in on our Instagram and Facebook on Rose Goldthorp Films. I tend to update those semi-regularly. Anyway, thank you so much for your hard work and support and kindness, and chat to you next time, kids.